If you run an inspection body, the letter on your accreditation certificate has just changed. For 14 years, we lived with Type A, Type B, and Type C. The third edition of ISO IEC 17020, published in March 2026, does something that surprised a lot of people in this industry. It keeps Type A and it replaces Type B and Type C with a single category called Type Non-A. Now, I have sat on both sides of this table. I have prepared inspection bodies for assessment, and I have seen what happens when a body assumes its old letter simply carries over. It does not. So, in the next few minutes, I am going to show you exactly what the standard says, where your body actually lands, and what your assessor is going to ask you for. Let's get into it. One quick thing before we start, and then I will leave you alone about it. Everything I am about to walk you through, we have already built for you. There is the full ISO IEC 17020 2026 edition documentation kit, 3 separate checklists, one for implementation, one for your internal audit, and one for the accreditation audit itself, and a complete online training course if you want to go deeper than a video can take you. All the links are in the description below this video, right? Now let's talk about the standard. Let's start with what you already know, because the contrast is the whole story. Under the 2012 edition, Annex A gave us 3 types. Type A was the classic third party, independent of everyone involved in the item being inspected. Type B was an identifiable separate part of a larger organization, and it supplied inspection services only to its parent organization. And Type C was the one that always caused the arguments. The body that inspects items, it is also involved in designing, manufacturing, supplying, or maintaining, with safeguards to keep those activities separated. 3 letters, 3 sets of conditions. That model is now gone. Here is the first thing that matters, and most summaries online get it wrong. Independence is no longer buried inside the impartiality clause. In the 2026 edition, it has been promoted to a structural requirement, Clause 5.1, and it says, and I am quoting the standard here, the inspection body shall meet independence requirements specified in Annex A, based on the conditions under which it performs its inspection activities, and, if applicable, as required by the inspection scheme. Notice that word, Annex A. And notice that Annex A is normative. That is not a nice-to-have appendix. It is a requirement you will be assessed against. And inside that annex, there are now exactly 2 headings, a point 1, Type A, and A.2, Type Non-A. Type A, 4 conditions, and you need all 4. Condition A, the body is independent of the parties involved. And the standard is generous with what parties involved means. The client, the owner, the user, the organization that designed, made, supplied, installed, or maintained the item, and even potential purchasers. There is a helpful note that says, the public is not a party involved, which sounds obvious until you have argued about it with an assessor. Condition B, neither the body nor its people engage in activities that conflict with independence of judgment, and specifically not design, manufacture, supply, installation, purchase, ownership, use, or maintenance of the item inspected, or similar competitive items. Condition C pushes that up to the legal entity you belong to, and Condition D pushes it sideways to any separate legal entity you are linked to. Now, before anyone panics, the annex is full of notes that give you back a lot of room, and I want you to hear them because I see bodies over-restricting themselves for no reason. You are still allowed to exchange technical information with your client, explaining your findings, clarifying a requirement, even delivering training. None of that breaks your independence. You are still allowed to buy, own, and use the very items you inspect when you need them to run your own operations, and your staff can own them personally. The standard also defines similar competitive for you, an item that is a genuine market alternative in terms of price, quality, and technical specification. And on ownership, there is a real carve-out. Common ownership is acceptable, where the owners have no ability to influence the outcome of an inspection. The standard even gives you the examples: a cooperative with many stakeholders, or a holding company with sister companies where none of them can influence an inspection outcome. So the question is never simply who owns you. The question is, can they influence the result? And now type non-A, which is the part people find strange at first. The standard does not describe type non-A by what it is. It describes it by what it is not. The exact wording is, an inspection body that does not meet the requirements of Clause A, point 1, shall meet the requirements below. That is it. If you fail any of the 4 type A conditions, you are type non-A. There is no third option. And then there are only 2 requirements. First, the legal entity shall provide safeguards within the organization to ensure adequate segregation of responsibilities and accountabilities between inspection and other activities. Second, and this one is very concrete, the design, manufacture, supply, installation, servicing, maintenance, and the inspection of the same item shall not be undertaken by the same person. There is one exception, and it is narrow, where a scheme requirement explicitly allows it, and as long as it does not compromise the inspection results. So the person-level firewall is the heart of type non-A. So where did B and C go? I searched the published text. Type B and Type C appear 0 times in the 2026 edition. They are not deprecated, they are not transitional, they are simply not there. Both are absorbed into type non-A. And I want you to notice what that really changes, because it is more interesting than the labels. The old model partly categorized you by who you serve. Type B was defined by supplying inspection to its parent organization. That criterion is gone. The 2026 model categorizes you by one question only. Can you satisfy all 4 conditions of A.1? If yes, you are type A. If no, you are type non-A, and you have 2 safeguards to demonstrate. That is a simpler test, and honestly, a more honest one. Now, here is the part I almost never see covered, and it is sitting right there in a note under Clause 5.1. The note says an inspection body can meet different independence requirements, type A and type non-A, for different inspection activities. Read that again because it changes how you write your scope. Your type is not a single label stamped on your organization. It attaches to the inspection activity. You can genuinely be type A for one activity and type non-A for another, within the same body, on the same certificate. I know quite a few inspection bodies who have been forcing themselves into one box for years, in taking commercial decisions they did not need to take. If that is you, tell me in the comments. I would genuinely like to know how common this is, because I suspect it is far more common than the industry admits. So let's make this practical. 4 questions per inspection activity in this order. 1. Are we independent of every party involved in this item? 2. Do we, or any of our personnel, design, make, supply, install, purchase, own, use or maintain that item or a similar competitive item? 3. Is our legal entity engaged in any of those activities? 4. Are we linked to a separate legal entity that is, through common ownership, through shared board appointees, through reporting to the same higher management, or through any contractual arrangement that gives them control or authority over us? 4 clean yeses on independence, and you are type A for that activity. 1 single no, and you are type non-A. Write the answers down. Do not keep them in your head, because your assessor will ask you to show the reasoning, not the conclusion. If you are type B, here is your reality. You are almost certainly type non-A now, and the language you have been using in your quality manual for years, separate an identifiable part of the organization, no longer exists in the standard. Take it out. Assessors notice when a manual quotes a withdrawn edition. What you need to build instead is genuinely simpler. 2 things. Documented safeguards showing adequate segregation of responsibilities and accountabilities between inspection and the other activities of the legal entity. That is an organizational chart, reporting lines, decision authority, and who signs what. In evidence that no single person performs both the other activity and the inspection of the same item. That is your competence matrix and your job assignment records doing the work for you. And if you were type C, you land in exactly the same place, type non-A, with the same 2 requirements as a former type B. That surprises people because type C used to feel like the weaker category. It is not weaker anymore, it is the same category. But I will be straight with you about where you will be tested hardest, and that is a point 2B, the person level separation. If your organization designs or maintains the items it inspects, the temptation to let the same engineer do both is enormous, especially in a small team. The standard does allow an exception, but read the condition carefully, only where an inspection scheme requirement explicitly allows that individual to do both. Explicitly, not implied, not silent, not custom and practice. And even then, you have to show the inspection results are not compromised. So what will actually be asked for on assessment day? 5 things, and I would prepare all 5. A documented independence analysis per inspection activity, not one blanket statement for the whole body. A scope statement that makes clear which activities are type A and which are type non-A, now that you know you are allowed to have both. An organizational chart that shows reporting lines and decision authority, not just job titles, because segregation of accountability is what A.2A is asking about. Records that prove, item by item, that the person who designed, supplied, or maintained it was not the person who inspected it. And if you are relying on the scheme exception, the actual text of the scheme requirement that explicitly allows it, bring the document, do not paraphrase it. And timing, briefly, the 3rd edition was published on the 27th of March 2026, and it cancels and replaces the 2012 edition. The transition deadline for bodies that are already accredited is 2029. But I want to add one honest caveat here. Your accreditation body sets the intermediate milestones, when they start assessing against the new edition, when they stop accepting the old one, and those dates differ from one accreditation body to another. So take the 2029 endpoint as fixed and confirm the steps in between with your own assessor. Do not plan backwards from 2029 and assume you have 3 quiet years. You do not. That is type A and type non-A, straight from the published text. If you now need to actually rebuild your documentation for the 2026 edition, we have done that work already. The documentation kit gives you the full system in editable format. The implementation checklist walks you clause by clause so nothing gets missed. And there are 2 more checklists, one for your internal audit and one to rehearse the accreditation audit before your assessor arrives. If you want the whole standard properly, not just this one topic, the online training course covers it end to end. Every link is in the description below. One last thing, and this is the one I actually care about. Tell me in the comments which type your body lands in under the new edition, and whether that is the same letter you had before. If you are unsure, describe your situation, and I will answer you personally. And if this saved you a conversation with your assessor, subscribe, because I am going through the whole 2026 edition clause by clause on this channel. See you in the next one.